But what I argue is that is actually the worst form of distraction. The kind of distraction that you don't even realize has tricked you into prioritizing the urgent at the expense of the important.
Hello guys, and welcome to the Rebound Talks podcast, where you find the best tools, tips, and techniques needed to overcome any adversity. I want you to ponder on this quote that's going to be very important for this interview. And it goes like this: everything we do for one reason. And that one reason is to escape discomfort. This comes from Nir Eyal, who we're going to be interviewing today. He writes, consults, and teaches about the intersection of psychology, technology, and business. The M.I.T. Technology Review has dubbed Nir as the prophet of habit-forming technology. He's founded 2 tech companies since 2003 and has taught at the Stanford Graduate School of Business. He's the author of 2 best-selling books, Hooked, How to Build Habit-Forming Products, and Indistractable, How to Control Your Attention and Choose Your Life. Today we're going to be talking about his second book, Indistractable, where we'll be teaching you how to become indistractable, take control of your focus, and reshape your life. Stay tuned to find out more. Hello, Nir. I really appreciate you coming on, man. It's truly an honor.
Sure, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I would love to start with how you've at first helped companies create this habit-forming products with Hooked, to then helping people overcome distraction with your new book, Indistractable.
Sure, yeah. So my first book, Hooked, is all about how products are designed to be habit forming. And so this is where I looked at some of the most world-changing companies today, such as Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and WhatsApp and Slack and Snapchat, these products that are built to be engaging. And I argue that this is a very good thing, that we can use the same tactics that these companies do to make all sorts of products into good habits. So I didn't write Hooked for them. I wrote it for you. I wrote it for people out there who are building products that can improve people's lives if the users would only use them. So, and that's exactly what's happened over the past 5.5 years now since Hooked was published. Companies like Kahoot, the world's largest educational software, use the Hook model to get kids hooked onto learning. Products like Fitbod get people hooked to exercise. The New York Times uses the Hook model to get people engaged with local news. So there's all kinds of ways that we can build good habits. But of course, studying habits for this long, there's also the other side of the coin, which is the bad habits. Mm-hmm. And so being in the industry and understanding the psychology of how habits are built, I also understand the Achilles heel of how to break bad habits. One of the worst habits that we have is our habit towards distraction. That despite knowing what we need to do and why we need to do it, somehow we don't do it. We don't get it done. And so maybe in previous generations, our parents, our grandparents could complain about how they didn't know what to do, right? I don't know how to lose weight. I don't know how to be better at my job. Maybe they could have said that. We can't say that, right? Who doesn't know how to do these things, right? You want to be a better student? Study. Like, do the work. Do you need a book to tell you that? You want to get in shape? Eat right, exercise. Like, really? You don't need a guru to tell you what to do. And if you don't know how to do, let's say you have some special condition, Google it, right? It's all right there. Just Google it. So the question is no longer, what to do. We all know what to do. The question is, why don't we do the things we know we should? That is the problem. It's not a lack of information. It's a lack of understanding around why do we keep getting distracted. And so I think that the superpower of this century, the most important skill of this century, will be the power to harness your attention and choose your life. That is going to be the really defining trait between who succeed and who fails, is who allows their time and their attention to be manipulated and controlled by other people, and who stands up and says, no, I decide for myself how I control my attention. I control how I will choose my life for myself, and I will become indistractable.
I think that's completely right. But to understand the problem, how big really is this distraction problem compared to previous generations? Why is it such a huge problem now, as maybe in the past it wasn't so big?
Oh, I think it's always been a problem. And in fact, this is not something that the iPhone or Facebook created. In fact, if you
Mm-hmm.
go back 2,500 years, Plato, the Greek philosopher, talked about this very same problem. 2,500 years
Mm-hmm.
ago, he was saying, boy, isn't the world so distracting these days? Look at everybody. Nobody can pay attention. Everybody has what he calls akrasia, the tendency to do things against our better interest. So every generation has had this problem. It's just we don't have the
Mm-hmm.
perspective of living in the past. We didn't live in the past. We live today. And so people catastrophize and say, oh, this is the worst time in history. This is so terrible. It's not. It's still the best time in history. Even with the corona crisis, things have never been better for the vast majority of mankind. That being said, there's lots of problems. There's lots of things we have to fix. But clearly, we have fewer excuses today than ever before, right? We can do more than any other time of human history. So I don't think the problem is worse. I think that what's happened is that we have these technologies that are so good, that are so interesting, that are designed to be engaging, and we want to engage, right? I mean, are we going to tell
Mm-hmm.
Netflix, stop making your show so interesting? Or Apple, stop making your phone so fun to use? Facebook, the feed is too interesting. I like interacting with it too much. Please stop. Give me a break. It's not going to happen. So why would we moan and complain about these companies and expect them to change when, look, we can change ourselves, and it's not that hard if we know what to do. So I think we're in this transition period where people haven't learned to adapt and adopt. And this is what we have always done as a species. There's a wonderful quote by Paul Virilio, the philosopher. He said that when you invent the ship, you invent the shipwreck, right? So clearly, ships are wonderful. They helped us, trade, and they did a lot of great things. But there's also shipwrecks, right? But
Mm-hmm.
when was the last time you heard about a shipwreck? Almost never. Why? Did we stop sailing ships? No, we made ships better. So we adapted our technologies to improve them. That's exactly what we're doing now, right? We invented the internet, we invented social media, and now there's these adverse consequences that we didn't expect, and we're going to make those technologies better with the next generation of technology. But we also need to adapt our behaviors, right? That we learn new ways of being in the world, and we need to spread what's called social antibodies. Social antibodies are when society figures out that a behavior is harming us, we
Mm-hmm.
spread new norms, new manners to keep people safe. So, for example, with this COVID pandemic, virtually overnight, people started social distancing and wearing masks and doing things to prevent each other getting sick. And we're seeing the
Mm-hmm.
same thing happen when it comes to the inappropriate or overuse of technology. People are calling each other out. If you sit down together with a friend and they're checking their phone, now the younger people don't have this
Mm-hmm.
problem. It's older people, by the way, who haven't picked up on the norms and the manners. We're starting to see new behaviors that we're all adopting to make sure that we can keep these technologies in their place so that they don't get the best of us and we get the best of them. So I think that's what's going to happen, is that society is going to learn, hopefully quickly, how to get the best of these tools.
And I think in your book, you approached it the right way. With these four themes, I would love to explore them, starting with mastering internal triggers. And you
Sure.
say that discomfort somehow might be the root cause for all of this behavior, all of this distraction.
Right, absolutely. So, if we are going to answer Plato's 2,500-year-old question of why do we do things against our better interests, why, despite knowing what to do, we don't do it, we have to start with the more first principles question, which is why do we do anything and everything, right? What is the
Mm-hmm.
nature of human motivation? Now, many people have learned that human motivation is about carrots and sticks, that everything we do is about the pursuit of pleasure and the avoidance of pain. This is called Freud's pleasure principle. But in fact, it's not true. That what we now know, neurologically speaking, is that everything you do is not about the pursuit of pleasure and the avoidance of pain, but rather everything you do, we do for one reason. And that one reason is to escape discomfort. Everything you do is about escaping discomfort. Even the pursuit of pleasurable sensations is itself psychologically destabilizing. So what that means is, therefore, that if all human behavior is about a desire to escape discomfort, that therefore means that time management is pain management. Okay, let me say that again. Time management is pain management. Procrastination, distraction, it's not a character flaw, right? Many people think that there's something wrong with them, that it's a medical diagnosis. And look, some people do have disorders. The vast majority of people, there is nothing wrong with you. It's not a character flaw. It's an emotion regulation problem. That everything we do is about a desire to escape discomfort. And it doesn't matter if it's too much news, too much booze, too much football, too much Facebook. It doesn't matter. If you are looking for distraction, it is about escaping your own mind. It's about escaping uncomfortable sensations that you don't want to deal with, whether that's boredom, loneliness, anxiety, stress, fear. If you don't learn how to handle those uncomfortable sensations, you will always find something to distract you. None of the productivity tips, none of the life hacks, none of that stuff works if you don't first start with mastering your internal triggers. And so that's the first step to becoming indistractable.
Yeah, and I completely agree, because at first I thought that focus was something that either you had or you didn't have. So I even went to a doctor and I was prescribed ADHD medication. I didn't take it because of personal reasons. But then I learned how to meditate, how you could actually train your focus in your breathing or in a specific object. And it shifted my paradigm. Now I realize that you can learn how to focus. You can build this as if it were a muscle.
Right.
So
and there's this propensity in our society. Sorry, just you made such a great point.
No way.
We have a propensity in our society to think that if you're uncomfortable, oh my God, that's terrible. Something's wrong with you. If you feel bad, if you're sad, if you're not happy all the time, if everything isn't awesome, something's wrong. That is rubbish. That is what the self-help and the medical community tells us to sell us crap. Okay. The fact of the matter is, you are designed to be uncomfortable. Okay. Think about it from an evolutionary basis, right? If there was ever a tribe of human beings that were happy all the time, that everything was awesome, those people would have been killed and eaten by our ancestors, right? From an evolutionary standpoint, you want a species to always hunt, to want more, to improve, to invent, to create. That only happens when we feel uncomfortable, when we feel discomfort. And so what we have to understand is that feeling bad is not bad. Struggle is part of the human condition. It's what makes us awesome. It's what helps us shoot for the moon and create life-changing medicine and improve our lot in life. The idea is, how do we harness those internal triggers? When we feel that discomfort, boredom, loneliness, fatigue, uncertainty, stress, whatever it might be, do we look for escape with a pill, with a drink, with Facebook? Do we look to get out of that sensation by training ourselves that, oh, we can never feel discomfort? Or do we harness it and use it like rocket fuel to lead us towards what we really want in life?
You couldn't have said it any better. And everybody that I interview, or at least most people I interview, talk about this: embracing discomfort, learning how to live with the pain and using it to propel you forward. So I think we definitely covered internal triggers with this one. And now I want to talk about step 2. That is, if you don't plan your day, someone else will. I completely agree with that. And you use this technique called time boxing, which you use to align your goals to your day-to-day. I would love for you to expand on that and see how we can help other people understand the technique.
Yeah. So one caveat, we're going to hopefully have time to talk about the 4 big strategies, but every strategy has tactics underneath it, right? So you're like, okay, I agree. You're right, Nir. Everything I do is about a desire to escape discomfort. I buy it. What do I do about it? If that's your question, unfortunately, we don't have time to go into the tactics, but the strategy is more important than the tactics. So I think that's the most important thing to cover. It's not what you do, it's why you do it. And of course, there's lots of techniques that I can tell you about in the book as well, in the Indistractable, about how to actually master the internal triggers, make time for attraction, the 4 different steps. But that's why we're kind of skipping around, just to kind of get as much in as we possibly can. But so the next step is super important. So let me talk about for a quick second, what is distraction, right? Because we really want to get our definitions straight so we understand what we're talking about. The best way to understand distraction is to understand what is the opposite of distraction. If you ask most people, what's the opposite of distraction? They'll say it's focus. But that's not exactly right. The opposite of distraction is not focus. The opposite of distraction, if you look at the origin of the word, is traction. That both traction and distraction come from the same Latin source, the word trahare, which means to pull, okay? And you'll notice that both traction and distraction end in the same 6 letters, A-C-T-I-O-N, that spells action. So traction is any action that pulls you towards what you want, things that move you towards your values, that help you live the kind of life you want, things that you do with intent. The opposite of traction is distraction. Any action that pulls you away from what you plan to do, anything that you are not doing with intent, anything that is in opposition to your values and the person you want to become. So this is really important for 2 reasons. Number one, anything can be a distraction, okay? Mm-hmm. So how many times do you sit at your desk and you say, okay, now I'm going to work on that big project. I'm not going to get distracted. I'm not going to procrastinate. Here I go. I'm going to work on that big assignment. I'm finally going to do that thing I've been delaying. Here I go. I'm going to get started. But first, let me just check email real quick, right? Let me do that one to-do on my to-do list because that feels productive, right? I'm kind of making progress. I got to check my emails at some point. I got to do these to-dos at some point, right? But what I argue is that is actually the worst form of distraction. The kind of distraction that you don't even realize has tricked you into prioritizing the urgent at the expense of the important, okay? If you play a video game, well, that's pretty obviously a distraction. But if you're checking email and convincing yourself, well, that's kind of, a work thing I have to do, that is just as much of a distraction, okay? Because it's not what you plan to do with your time. Conversely, everything can be traction, right? So these days, you hear a lot of people saying this stupid argument that technology is hijacking your brain, that it's addicting everyone, that it's manipulating us all. And let me tell you, that is dumb. It is not true. Hijacking is what they did to us on 9/11, okay? Hijacking is not playing Candy Crush, for God's sakes. It's a video game. Get a grip, people. These things, this excuse that people make is doing nothing but giving the tech companies what they want. Because if you say, oh, there's nothing I can do, addictive, hijacking my brain, what am I going to do about it? You don't even try. Okay, so stop making this stupid excuse that technology is addicting you. There's nothing wrong with the technology, but use it on your schedule. You want to play a video game? Do it. You want to go on Twitter? You want to go on YouTube? You want to go on Twitch? You want to go on Snapchat, Instagram? I don't care. Do it, but do it on your schedule, not the tech company's schedule, your schedule. So the difference between traction and distraction is one word: intent. Intent. So if you plan the time to waste time, that is fine. It's traction, right? So put in your schedule, I am going to play video games from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. That's what I want to do. Great. There's nothing wrong with that. And don't let anybody tell you it's addicting you. That's bullshit. Do it if it's on your schedule. Anything else, as long as you plan for it, anything else becomes distraction. Now, what this means is that you have to plan your day. Okay. I don't want to hear that you got distracted if you can't tell me what you got distracted from. Okay. Let me say that again. It's a really important point. You can't call something a distraction unless you know what it distracted you from, which means you have to keep a schedule for your entire day based on your values. You have to turn your values into time. So I don't care what your values are. That's not for me to decide or anybody else to decide for you. But if you tell me that, you know what, one of your values is to take care of your body. Great. Do you have time to exercise on your schedule? Do you have a bedtime on your schedule? Do you have things that you do for yourself like meditation, prayer, video games, whatever's important to you? I don't care. But that needs to be held on your calendar, as does time for relationships, as does time for your work. So hold that time on your calendar. This is how we make time for traction. Because again, if you don't plan your day, as you said before, somebody's going to plan it for you. Your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your boss, your parents, whatever is happening on Twitter, somebody has an incentive to take up that time unless you decide in advance how you will spend it.
Plan your day aligned with your values. I love it. I love it, Nir. Now let's talk about external triggers. It
Yeah,
seems that nowadays people think that we're available always, that they could text us at 6 a.m. and we should respond. Group chats, social media, especially that what bothers me the most is that ping, 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 and the
right.
light turning on and off. So how can people set up their phones so they don't have that constant ping, 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 that people
Right.
know when they're trying to focus and they don't bother them per se?
Yeah, so there's nothing necessarily wrong with the external triggers. So we talked earlier about internal triggers. Internal triggers are
Mm-hmm.
those triggers that come from inside of us. That's the most important place to start. Most distraction is not an external trigger, it comes from an
Mm-hmm.
internal trigger. But external triggers can definitely lead us towards either traction or distraction. So if you get a notification on your phone, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Maybe it's reminding you to go exercise. Maybe it's reminding you that you have that appointment with your friend, or it's time to call your parents. That can be a very good thing. The question you have to ask yourself with every external trigger in your life is whether that external trigger is serving you or are you serving it? Okay, that's the key question. Is it serving you or are you serving it? And if it's not serving you, get rid of it. And a lot of this is kindergarten stuff, right? You don't need me to tell you to turn off notifications on your phone. And yet, 2/3 of people with a smartphone never change their notification settings. What? Right? Like 2/3 of people with a smartphone, they just
Yeah.
complain about how distracted they are, but they haven't taken 5 minutes. Turn off that crap, right? And if you,
Mm-hmm.
again, want to use those services, do it, but do it on a schedule. Don't do it every time the tech company wants you to use your device. Use it when you want to use it based on that schedule we talked about in the previous step. But that's kindergarten stuff, right? Whether it's your
Mm-hmm.
phone, your computer, the worst forms of these external triggers come in the things that people don't actually think about as much. It's the meetings that don't need to be called. It's the emails that waste a ton of our time. It's if you work in an office. I know many of us are working from home right now, but if you work in an office,
Mm-hmm.
it's the person who stops by your desk and says, "Can I just talk to you for a quick second?" Right?
Mm-hmm.
All those things are much more. It's your roommate, right, at college who interrupts you in the middle of working. Those are also external triggers. And it turns out there's a lot of things we can do to hack back those external triggers as well. And part of hacking back these external
Mm-hmm.
triggers is also changing the product, right? Changing whatever that distraction might be to serve us. So, for example,
Mm-hmm.
many people don't know how you can hack back these products. Why do I use the word hack? Because
Mm-hmm.
in computer parlance, so computer engineers, to hack something means to gain unauthorized access, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty clear that many companies and people are trying to gain unauthorized access to our attention. And there's a reason we call it paying attention. There's value to it, right? We pay attention, just like we would pay with dollars or cents or euros. There is value there. So we can't just give it away to everyone. So even though we all know that the news, Facebook, the paper, all of these things want our attention. Every media company wants to hack your attention. They want to gain
Mm-hmm.
unauthorized access to your attention. We can hack back. How do we hack back? Well, there are so many free tools and technologies today that we can use to change the technology in ways that serve us as opposed to us serving them. So, for example, when I go on YouTube, next time you go on YouTube, I'm sure you see this. There's that
Mm-hmm.
wall of ads and other videos on the side there, right? Well, did you know
Yeah.
that you can use a free Chrome extension called YouTube DF? DF stands for distraction free. That gets rid of all that crap, right? So when I watch YouTube, I only see the video I want to see. I don't see any of the next videos. I don't see any of the recommendations, none of that algorithmic stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
just want to see the video I want to see. And guess what? There's nothing Google can do about it because I've hacked their product, and there's nothing illegal about it. It's totally free, this software. Go search for it, YouTube DF on the Chrome store. There's all these tools. All we got to do is use them.
And what other tools have you used to hack back?
Yeah, so there's all kinds. So, for example, on Facebook, I love Facebook, but I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to see the news feed. The news feed for me is not in accordance with my values, right? I might want to go see Antonio's personal Facebook page to see what's up with your life, but I don't want to see all that junk of the politics and the cat videos. I don't need that in my life, right? So, what did I do? Another Chrome extension is called Facebook Newsfeed Eradicator. Okay, that's the name, Facebook Newsfeed Eradicator. So, whenever I go to Facebook, my newsfeed has been transformed into an inspirational quote, right? So I've hacked back Facebook, and there's nothing Zuckerberg can do about it. So if you change the notification settings, if you use these technologies to hack back their technology, they can't undo it. Zuckerberg can't reach into your phone and turn on the notification settings after you turn them off. So for each of these potentially distracting technologies, we have to learn how to hack back. Another thing, by the way, that any of us can do, there's a wonderful setting that comes on our phones today. Let me see if I can pull it up for you. So you see this little button here that looks like a car. Everybody's
Yeah.
phone comes with this today, Android, iPhone. This is do not disturb while driving, okay? And the way this works is with one button, right? Let's say you're the kind of person who's kind of anxious and, you want to do focused work. You want to make sure that you're doing something that, in order to really do your work,
Mm-hmm.
you don't want any distractions, but you're scared of turning off your phone. What if there's emergency, right? Well, you turn on do not disturb while driving. And if someone calls or texts you, they will receive an automatic reply that says, I can't talk right now, but if this is urgent, text me with the word urgent. Okay. So if they type in urgent, then their message or call will come through. This is built into everybody's phone right now. We just need to start using it.
Yeah, and it's great that you're spreading the word, letting people know that it's there, because a lot of people don't even know it's there, and for some reason.
Yeah.
Now I want to talk about pre-commitments and types of packs that help you stay focused. You also mentioned
Yes.
this $100 technique that you use that I found insane, but I could see exactly why it would work. I would love to dive into that.
Sure. Okay. So the fourth step, and this is what you have to do last, by the way, do not skip the order. It's very, very important. So first is master the internal triggers, then make time for traction, then hack back the external triggers. And there's a lot more techniques in the book that we describe how to do this. But last, as the last line of defense, as what we do as the firewall to prevent us from getting distraction, here we can use what we call pacts. Pacts are forms of pre-commitment. And this has been documented in thousands of case studies and thousands of peer-reviewed journals. This is a very effective technique to help keep us on track. And what this means is that you are making a promise to yourself or to someone else that you will not get distracted, that you will do what you say you're going to do. So there are three types of pacts. There's what we call an effort pact, a price pact, and an identity pact. Let me talk about the technique that you just mentioned, which is a price pact. A price pact says that if you don't do what you said you're going to do, there is an economic cost. There's a price associated with that. So for example, I used to be clinically obese. Today I'm not. I'm in the best shape of my life. I'm 42 years old and I've never been in better shape. Thank you. I appreciate it. But I've always struggled with my weight. And I hated exercise. I still don't love it, but I always hated it. But I knew it was one of my values. Again, I'm not preaching to anybody. If it's not one of your values, no problem. I'm not saying it should be. But if it's one of your values, as it was mine, I had this problem where every day I knew I should work out, but I didn't do it. I would procrastinate for yet another day, even though I said I wanted to. So here's what I did. After doing the other things, right? After mastering the internal triggers, making time for traction, so having a time on my calendar to do it, hacking back the external triggers, I did all that first. As the line of last defense, okay, as the firewall, I implemented what I call the burn or burn technique, okay? The burn or burn technique says that every day, here's how it works. Every day I walk into my closet when I get dressed in the morning, and there's a calendar on the wall there. I can't miss it. And taped onto today's date, whatever the day is, taped on today's date is a crisp, fresh $100 bill. Now, above my calendar, there's a shelf. And on that shelf, there's a lighter. And so every day I have a choice to make. I can either burn some calories, meaning 6 days a week. This is the rule I set for myself. 6 days a week, I have to do something physical. Go for a jog, do some push-ups, take a walk around the block. go to the gym. I have to do something physical 6 days a week. Okay, that's the rule I set for myself according to my values. Yours can be different. Mine was 6 days a week. If I don't do it, if I don't burn the calories, I have to burn the money. I have to literally light it on fire. Now, many people, when I tell them this story, they feel this, oh, I could never do that. Oh, that's terrible, right? I can't do it. I don't want to burn the money. Of course you don't want to burn the money. I've done this for 3 years now. I've never burned the money. You know why? Because I do the thing I say I'm going to do. So if you feel that ickiness, I encourage you to consider why. The reason why that feeling, okay, probably you're calling me crazy right now, that's your mind tricking you to make an excuse for why you don't want to do the hard work, right? Now I got to do the exercise? Shit, I don't want to do that. That's no fun, right? But you yourself said you want to do it. So if you really want to do it, why wouldn't you use a technique that costs you nothing, right? If you just do it, you don't burn the money, right? So as opposed to paying Weight Watchers or, a coach or whatever, here's a technique that doesn't cost you anything as long as you do what you said you're going to do. And it works. It's been verified, not just in this study with me, of course. I didn't just make this up. This has been shown to be the most effective smoking cessation technique in history. It's a little bit more complex what that study involved. It's a little bit different from what I just gave you, but basically it's the same thing about putting up money to make sure you do what you say you're going to do. So that's one example of an effort pact. The one other thing I just want to mention real quick is what we call an identity pact. An identity pact is very, very powerful. And this comes from the psychology of religion. That when people have some kind of moniker, okay, I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, I'm a vegetarian, right? Mm-hmm. When you have some kind of moniker, some kind of noun that you call yourself, you become much more likely to do what you say you're going to do. So for example, a vegetarian doesn't wake up in the morning and says, should I have some bacon today? No, a vegetarian doesn't eat meat. It's who they are. So this is why the book is titled Indistractable. If you've listened to us talking here for the past 30 minutes or so, you can call yourself indistractable, okay? You are the kind of person who strives to do what they say they're going to do. That is who you are. You're not one of these people who's manipulated by others and their time and attention is controlled by somebody else. No. Stand up and say, I am indistractable. That is who I am. This is what I do. And do I do some things that are a little different? Yeah, I do this weird thing where I keep track of my time. I plan my time in advance. And yeah, I do this weird thing with my calendar. And yeah, you know what? I don't respond to every text message and phone call within 30 seconds. A little bit different. Is it any different from someone who wears unusual religious gown or someone who eats an unusual diet? No. These are the trendsetters. These are the people who decide what the future is going to look like for all of us, the people who have a moniker, an identity, and are willing to take that risk of being a little bit outside the norm.
Yeah, I think identity packs definitely work great because if you identify yourself with something and you let people know, not only is it something psychological, but then your friend is going to tell you, he's like, oh, I thought you were indistractable, like joking around when he sees you fooling off. Yeah. Stuff like that.
Totally. And look, being indistractable does not mean you never get distracted. Let's be very clear. I made up the term, right? So I can make the definition anything I want. Indistractable is not a real word. I made it up. So being indistractable does not mean you never get distracted. Being indistractable means you're the kind of person who strives to do what they say they're going to do. So the difference between someone who is distractible and indistractable is that the indistractable person, when they get distracted, they try and figure out why, according to this model, because every distraction only has three reasons: an external trigger, an internal trigger, or a planning problem. That's it. Every distraction is only because of one of those three things. And they do something to prevent getting distracted in the future. Because as Paulo Coelho said, a mistake repeated more than once is a decision. A mistake repeated more than once is a decision. So if you keep getting distracted by the same thing again and again and again, well, you have made the decision to be distractible. Whereas if you decide, okay, you got me that one time distraction. Okay, I didn't expect that distraction. You got me. If you don't take steps today to make sure you don't keep getting distracted, right? That's the difference. The person who takes measures now to prevent getting distracted by the same thing again and again next time.
Yeah, learning from your mistakes, not getting distracted buy the same thing twice.
Right. By having a
Amazing.
system. It's not about willpower. It's not about self-control. It's about a system.
And what is the number one advice that you would give to the what I call the distracted generation, which would be Gen Z?
Well, don't think of yourself as a distracted person. Think of yourself as an indistractable person, right? Because that identity really matters. If you tell yourself, "Oh, I have a short attention span. I'm lazy. I'm part of the distractible generation," you're going to act accordingly. So don't let other people put labels on you. You decide what your labels are, whether you want to be a vegetarian, whether you want to be a Republican, whether you want to be a Democrat, whether you want to be an atheist, doesn't matter. Be what you want to be. And what you can decide to be, what all of us should decide to be, is to decide to be indistractable. So no matter what it is you want to do with your time, I don't care what you do with your time. I want to help you do whatever it is you decide you want to do with your time, as opposed to what other people want you to do with your time.
That's perfect, Nir. And is there anything else you would like to say or something specific that you would like to promote?
Sure. So if you want some more information about my work, then my website is niranfar.com. Nir is spelled like my first name. So that's Nir and far.com. And the book is titled Indistractable: How to Control Your Attention and Choose Your Life. And if you go to indistractable.com, there's all kinds of complimentary resources, whether you buy the book or not. There's an 80-page workbook. There's a video course there as well that's complimentary. So go ahead and check that out at indistractable.com.
Yeah, and I've definitely tried it myself. This stuff works, so go
Thank
get it.
you. I'm so glad that makes my day to hear that it's impacting your life. That's really my mission right now. I mean, my goal right now is to help make people indistractable, because I see what's a huge impact it's had in my own life and the life of others. So thank you very much for saying that.
No, thank you, Nir, and thank you for taking your time. It's
My
been an
pleasure.
honor.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Rebound Talks podcast. I really hope you enjoyed it. We're coming out with episodes every single Wednesday, so please subscribe, leave a like, and if you found anything useful, comment it down below. See you next week.